Hello, I'll begin by a Sufi story. Once upon a time, Khidir, the teacher of Moses, called upon mankind with a warning. At a certain date, he said, all the water in the world, which had not been specially hoarded, would disappear. It would then be renewed with different water, which would drive men mad. Only one man listened to the meaning of this advice. He collected water and went to a secure place where he stored it and waited for the water to change its character. On the appointed date, the streams stopped running, the wells went dry, and the man who had listened, seeing this happening, went to his retreat and drank his preserved water. When he saw from his security the waterfalls again beginning to flow, this man descended among the other sons of men. He found that they were thinking and talking in an entirely different way from before. Yet they had no memory of what had happened, nor of having been warned. When he tried to talk to them, he realized that they thought that he was mad, and they showed hostility or compassion, not understanding. At first, he drank none of the new water, but went back to his concealment to draw on his supplies every day. Finally, however, he took the decision to drink the new water because he could not bear the loneliness of living, behaving, and thinking in a different way from everyone else. He drank the new water and became like the rest. Then he forgot all about his own store of special water, and his fellows began to look upon him as a madman who had miraculously been restored to sanity. The one person who could have saved the community sold out for the same reasons that we, people, sell out daily. This particular kind of selling out goes very deeply and very well describes our situation today. Many of us sell out just not to be different. The thing is that we are unhappy, tense, lonely, unfulfilled, and looking for ways to fix this humdrum existence. Only we look in the wrong places. We don't know any other way of being than the way we've been up to now. We fix on the foreground without acknowledging the backdrop. These are troubled times, but we need not be troubled people. Daily, we're being confronted by unprecedented, chaotic situations on a global scale and on all fronts, including our own feelings and impressions. There are signs of an eroding aggression gnawing away at the surface of our lives. We see them, but we cannot understand what causes them or how to solve them, really. Nobody seems to know of the existence of the true, hidden, unpolluted water. Extreme situations lead to alternate solutions, which need to emerge from a new human being. But where is this new human being? Is this creature even a possibility? Inner Alchemy reveals a reservoir of human faculties and abilities which allow for global vision and truly alternate possibilities. Our focus is on growth, building and expanding, not merely surviving. We believe that the kind of equality that upholds sameness is dull and mediocre. We deserve more. In our experience, we acknowledge both cause and effect simultaneously, a perception that can only emerge out of a fully sentient intelligence. And what is this sentient intelligence? For us, this represents an illumined, humane frame of mind that is not afraid of vulnerability. The key, not afraid. But how to bypass fear in today's existence? Living in the present is a frightening experience because it means discontinuity, and we're wholly unprepared for this. We're habitually living from the past or the projected future. Aloneness instead of fullness spells loneliness, death, destitution, and impotence for the average person. To be here now without the promise of tomorrow is devastating. It makes us feel powerless. And power is the key to dignity and self-worth, being powerful. Now, what is power really? Where is it found? Normally, power is projected outside onto symbolic sources and is generated physically. We are ignorant of the power we hold within. The power of mind, the power of feeling, ultimately the power of consciousness. We simply don't know who or what we are. Instead, we bestow personal meaning and power to things, conditions, and others. In Inner Alchemy, we become aware of the magnitude of power of consciousness, and we learn to use it on ourselves and in our world. Alongside the greatest creations, we are aware of the disharmony, discord, and chaos that we are capable of igniting. So we learn to live the present moment fully, consciously, joyfully, without pretense of continuity. Actually, we acknowledge our insignificance along the power we know that we hold. And this leads to a natural neutrality, which spells humility and leads inevitably to an attitude of service, in other words, to sacred office, sacrifice, service. Instead of meanings, in Inner Alchemy, life is viewed in terms of frequencies, rhythms, dynamics, which we handle. Power is the opposite of simplicity, vulnerability, and beauty. But in the minds of the ordinary person, it is the most fascinating, intoxicating, and seductive temptation. It translates into personal power and control over others and circumstances. To be powerful connotes being important, obeyed, respected, someone surrounded by people and things. Without power, a person collapses into meaninglessness. Power at the physical level, including the gestation of human life, emerges through friction. At the mental level, it is produced in interaction with the environment. In communication, it generates tensions, which in the positive sense become ideas and strategies. The most obvious form of power is money. Money spells survival, identity, success or failure. The illusion that everything can be bought. Today, global discussions dwell on the mistaken idea that money is the solution for current evils, and if we can stabilize the economy, all will be well. Really? Now here's the way things really are. Here's the way we perceive them inwardly. The human being is invested with and responds to two laws, that of matter and that of consciousness. However, our world sees only one, that of matter, materialism. Spirituality may be talked about a lot, actually, and especially today, but no one truly understands it. What is it? There's no one single definition of consciousness that holds, because consciousness is immaterial. To see it, to work with it, one must sidestep all vested interests and enter a world of coincidence and cohesion that is indescribable and wordless. The law of consciousness, in other words, we could call it the law of love, works by similarity, by fusion, reciprocity, and collaboration with all of life, not just human beings. It includes everything. And when we are so busy setting goals and defining preferences and possessions, we miss the forest for the trees. A human being is not a material thing, no more than we are a body. He is a creator, and our real, ultimate, and supreme power derives from the consciousness of unity. Only that which parts from the principle of oneness and can resonate with a power source that makes a difference. Our source of power resides in the I. The I. Think about this for just a moment and feel it right now. Repeat I silently instead of your name. I. Feel what happens. Feel what happens physically, mentally, emotionally. I. Then add I am. Feel what happens when you think or say am following I. I am. The I centers your attention into a potent focus. The am, feel it, directs it into creation. The I becomes whatever follows the am. Now this is really interesting and something for you to practice. It tells a lot about our nature and our powers. If there is nothing following the am, then the power reverts back to the source, the I. Take a few seconds to experience this simple and very ancient formula. I am. I am. The I am is the power vested in daily attitudes and emotions. That tremendous power of being and the ability to direct energies goes into all the emotions and thoughts that we have. We create and energize whatever we think, say, or believe. Unfortunately, most of our creations, our thoughts, our lives, if not illusory, are unworthy of ourselves. We worry. Now, everything is energy. And energy is directed by something, someone, and determined by the quality of the subject. And that is the key. The level of inner quality of a human being. Think about this for just one moment, because this is the answer to everything that is happening today. A better world is structured by the quality of its members. And if we want a better world, we need to start divesting ourselves of self-interest and self-importance. I repeat, the quality of consciousness of the transmitter is what makes the difference in our world, my quality. So whatever I say depends on what I am, how I am feeling, how I hold myself to be. Money controls our world because we empower it. But there are other ways in which we could use our power. That's what this talk is about. We need a break. The world needs rest from unreality and strife, from reaching for illusory goals and attaining superficial satisfactions from untruth and falsity, from inauthenticity and impotence, from ourselves as we think that we are, and from a world where we are constantly and helplessly recreating. The world goes on, oblivious to the condition of the individual devoid of itself. Even global discussions, such as the Great Reset, hosted by the World Economic Forum, do not consider the essential emptiness experienced daily by people. The best example is what we, as a society, have seen and we've produced in what happened with COVID. Now, COVID was a phoenix experience. Human beings were launched, they were forced to go deeply within, without having anything inside to go to. They found emptiness and meaninglessness instead of what could have been fullness. What with restrictions and limitations, a few emerged from the ashes, but many did not. Deaths, depressions, suicides, all of these are legacies of those who couldn't cope with nothingness. The nothingness to do, the nothingness to be. We've ignored the inner stirrings of truth as uncomfortable for too long. We've depended on external stimulation and routine for too long. Like spoiled children, we demand payback from life instead of paying homage and feeling gratitude. This is what we do. Now bear with me. To be happy, this is what we do. We impose conditions on life and others. We impose guarantees that assure security, continuity, and stability. We demand free time and less work as payback for fulfilling duties and obligations. We seek comfort, shelter, privacy, borders that ensure separation, that breeds greater and greater self-importance, separation, and specialness. We demand respect that spells self-importance. We demand financial rewards to make up for the lack of self-worth. We look for symbolic substitutes, demonstrations of affection and nurturance from others instead of finding it within. We hardly consider that happiness might stem from simply being happy for no reason at all, and that only we are responsible for this. Nobody can give it to us. That happiness, like joy, is a state of being. It doesn't follow a cause. Viewed from the materialistic perspective, these impositions that we make on life, as well as those awful things that happened to so many people in the light of COVID, are real. And yet, from the perspective of consciousness, other things also happened. Not enough is being said about the positive effect of 2+ years of social restrictions, or about the silent yet strong complicity of the few that is arising. Yes, a complicity of the few. Under the surface, here's what happened during the pandemic. What went wrong after COVID was not caused by imposed confinement or privation of human contact. No. It was the natural effect of the inability to be alone and whole without an inner anchor or sense of self. Without the ability to experience the peace and joy that emerges from life itself. How can we begin to set our priorities straight and value the present moment over the seductive, involving trivia of materialistic daily life and physical satisfactions? Now, these are just a few of the reigning principles or beliefs. Beliefs determine satisfactions. And these that follow are the beliefs that underlie the world we have created and nourished up to now. Reality is physical. This is something that most people believe. The existence of God, where there is one, is as remote and external as everything else in the material world, reached through intermediaries as fallible as ourselves. The value of a human being is reflected through appearance and behavior. Importance is placed on performance, appearance, and achievement. The human being is held to be a social creature of habits, urges, instincts, and reflexes that define supposedly essential needs for stimulation. Relationships are held to provide them and determine fulfillment. In other words, outside of relationships, we cannot have fulfillment. This is the subjacent belief for many people. Focus is placed on uniformity and obedience rather than on individuality and authentic belonging. The belonging is always placed outside, and it becomes of utmost importance. Duty, loyalty, and obligation are blindly placed above and beyond individual discernment. Seems strange, doesn't it? If we are to consider a more humane world, some concepts need resetting to reveal the dynamics that they conceal and which we keep energizing. Here are some concepts we might best redefine. Depression. Now, depression occurs in the absence of deep connection with one's true voice of consciousness. This state of mind sets in when we are unable to acknowledge ourselves as whole. Grief. This is a stage of total absorption in the idea of cessation, discontinuity, and privation. It usually occupies a great deal of time and emotional distraction that could be otherwise engaged. Loss. This is a materialistic miasma. What would lead a human being who knows itself one with the rest of creation to demand control, possession, and permanence from nature? What is lost, really? Worry. Worry is usually about loss associated with identity. Worrying belies the conviction that the senses and physical life are the only reality. All of these things are implied. Forgiveness. Unforgiveness might be seen as a revengeful, self-righteous tantrum performed in ignorance. A self-realized individual cannot be wronged and has nothing to forgive. Fear. This often shows deep insecurity that comes up when control is lost, or when, in ignorance of one's true nature and direct connection with Source, one forgets about oneself. Predictability. This is based on imposed continuity and stability, where the laws of spirit have been replaced by the law of physics, matter, materialism. There is nothing predictable about a human being who is authentic and free. Next, one must work hard to earn merit, implying that we must give up something in order to have what we wish for. You can't have your cake and eat it. In another world, we can. Next, the need to control people or conditions. When something is not to our liking, control, instead of understanding, is sought. Imposition rather than sensitive dialogue. Understand, a human being holds the unique potential to be whole and authentic when aligned with the laws of nature and the universe. The human being is an embodiment of love, a creature made from and for love, whose greatest happiness is the well-being of the whole. Now this you experience in your meditation. This you know to be true. Nobody's got to tell you about this. We are not evil. Humanity is not evil. It's become evil or not so nice because of its missing itself, its connection with itself. Consciousness expands in proportion to the evolution of human sensibility. And this is something that I urge my students and everyone I come in contact with. Let's spread sensibility, sensitivity with one another. Let's make it a way of being. And rather than belief, the experience of knowing, that knowing for no reason at all, but knowing, reflects the law of oneness that emerges from that inner sensibility that transcends logic or intellect. Humans respond to a higher order that unites rather than divides. Feel this, explore this. Don't just deny it. Don't just argue with it. This is known as conscience. The responsibility of government, organizations, and all of us, and world leaders, is to respond to this law. Now, I keep repeating, the kind of equality that upholds sameness is dull and mediocre, and we are more than that. We deserve more than that. All oneness means standing alone, whole, in leadership. If you are whole, you can't help but be a leader of yourself, versus the privileged hierarchical leadership which is imposed upon us. The individual is the building block of the society. He or she is the embodiment of change. Inner Alchemy stands for this kind of equality based on difference and uniqueness, fostering inner discipline, purpose, and individuality. As an overall daily exercise, we propose the alchemical alignment, so that in time, the more you practice it, it becomes a state of being and perceiving. You begin perceiving not only from here as you normally do, the world around us, of material objects. We begin to perceive from a higher vantage point, from the vantage point of that electronic presence, from the vantage point of that sensibility that accrues in the heart. Acquiring a holistic vision of the present and lifting the mind to neutrality and true intelligence, not just rote learning. Solutions arise because we see the whole picture and we begin to think in holistic patterns congruent with reality, capital R. Eventually, the Inner Alchemy way of being awakens that state of leadership that links power with clear vision and ethical practice in daily life, serving to construct a better world. A person is not just a social creature of habit. We become creatures of habit when deprived of individual will, creativity, and authenticity, and forego the dictates of the inner voice. Creation, ergo creativity, needs no brute force, but rather sensitive attunement to nature and life. We do not need, please, we do not need to endure another pandemic or live impotently through the catastrophic effects of genocide and infanticide that war brings about, to live life fully, joyfully, in freedom and endless creativity. Learn to live the moment. Learn to go deeply inside. Learn to treasure who and what you are. All we need is to discover our own company, in tune with the vast, ecstatic silence of creation. I thank you. If the urge to satisfy desire is the basic urge of the form life of man, the urge to serve is an equally basic urge of the soul of a man. In service, one learns the power of love. This is a quote from Alice Bailey, from her book, Serving Humanity.